Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are traveling back in time more than 1,700 years to explore one of the most fascinating cities in ancient China. Our destination is Beijing in the year 300 AD. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and support our work. Also, tell us in the comments which city you would like us to explore in our next video. Your suggestions help us choose our future journeys through history. Now, let's begin our adventure. When people hear the name Beijing today, they often think about a huge modern city filled with skyscrapers, highways, technology, and millions of people. But what was this area like in the year 300 AD? The city that would eventually become modern Beijing was very different. At that time, it was not yet the capital of China. The region was known by different names during different periods of history. It was an important northern settlement located near the frontier between farming communities and the vast grasslands of Inner Asia. The year 300 AD was a complicated period in Chinese history. The Han dynasty had already fallen, and China was divided among different kingdoms and regional powers. Political struggles and military conflicts were common. Yet despite these challenges, life continued, trade flourished, and culture developed. The area around Beijing was strategically important because it connected northern China with the steppes to the north and northeast. Merchants, soldiers, travelers, and officials often passed through the region. Imagine arriving at Beijing in 300 AD. Instead of modern buildings, you would see city walls made from packed earth and wood. Gates controlled who entered and left the city. Guards watched the roads, checking merchants and travelers. The population was much smaller than today, but the city was still lively. Markets were filled with people buying food, cloth, tools, pottery, and animals. The sounds of traders calling out prices mixed with the noises of carts, horses, and busy workers. Most ordinary people lived in simple homes built from wood, mud bricks, and packed earth. Wealthier families enjoyed larger residences with courtyards and gardens. The homes were designed to protect people from the cold northern winters and the hot summers. Life in ancient Beijing followed the rhythm of nature. People woke up early, often before sunrise. Farmers left their homes to work in the fields surrounding the city. Craftsmen opened their workshops. Merchants prepared their goods for sale. Officials began their administrative duties. Agriculture was the foundation of daily life. The fertile lands around the region produced important crops such as millet, wheat, and vegetables. Farmers worked hard throughout the year. They planted seeds in spring, cared for crops during summer, harvested in autumn, and prepared for winter. Many families depended entirely on successful harvests. Good weather meant prosperity. Droughts, floods, or pests could bring hardship. Animals also played a major role in daily life. Farmers raised pigs, chickens, cattle, and horses. Horses were especially valuable because they were important for transportation, communication, and military activities. Food in Beijing during 300 AD was simple but nourishing. A typical meal might include grain porridge, bread made from wheat flour, vegetables, beans, and occasionally meat. Wealthier households could afford more variety, including fine dishes, imported goods, and special ingredients. Tea was not yet as widespread as it would become in later centuries, but various drinks and herbal preparations were already known. Markets served as the heart of social and economic life. People gathered not only to buy and sell goods, but also to exchange news and information. Travelers brought stories from distant regions. Merchants discussed trade opportunities. Local residents learned about events happening across the kingdom. These markets connected Beijing to larger trade networks. Goods arrived from many regions of China. Some items came from even farther away through routes connected to the Silk Road. Silk, precious stones, metal products, and luxury goods occasionally reached the city. Transportation was far slower than today. Most people traveled on foot. Wealthier individuals rode horses or traveled in carts. Roads varied in quality. Some were well maintained, while others became difficult to use during bad weather. Despite these challenges, movement of people and goods remained constant. Family was the center of society. Children were expected to respect their parents and elders. Family traditions were extremely important. Several generations often lived close together, helping each other through daily life. Respect for ancestors was deeply rooted in society. Families honored deceased relatives through rituals and ceremonies. Many believed that maintaining connections with ancestors brought stability and harmony. Religion and spiritual beliefs influenced everyday life. People practiced a mixture of traditional Chinese beliefs, ancestor worship, local customs, and philosophical teachings. Buddhism was gradually spreading into northern China during this period, introducing new ideas about life, morality, and the universe. Temples and sacred sites provided places for reflection and worship. Festivals brought excitement to the community. During important celebrations, people gathered to share meals, perform ceremonies, and enjoy entertainment. Music, storytelling, and traditional performances helped strengthen social bonds. Children in Beijing enjoyed games and activities much like children everywhere. They played with simple toys, practiced physical skills, and learned from older family members. Although life was often difficult, families still found moments of joy and celebration. The climate shaped many aspects of daily life. Northern China experiences cold winters, and residents needed warm clothing and reliable shelters. Families stored food and fuel to survive harsh weather conditions. Clothing reflected both practical needs and social status. Ordinary people wore garments made from hemp and simple fabrics. Wealthier individuals could afford silk clothing, colorful decorations, and finely crafted accessories. Healthcare was based on traditional knowledge. Healers used herbs, dietary practices, and early medical theories to treat illnesses. While medical understanding was limited compared to modern standards, many practices reflected centuries of accumulated experience. As evening arrived, the city gradually became quieter. Without electric lights, most activities ended soon after sunset. Families gathered together, shared meals, talked about the day's events, and prepared for the next morning. Under the night sky, ancient Beijing rested. Though much smaller than the modern metropolis we know today, it was already an important center of human activity, culture, trade, and community life. Now we'll focus on work, education, science, and the thinkers of that time. We will see how people earned a living, how they learned, and how ideas slowly shaped society. In 300 AD, most people in the Beijing region worked in agriculture. Farming was the most common and most important job. Families depended on the land for survival. Farmers grew crops such as millet, wheat, barley, and vegetables. Work in the fields was hard and constant. People used simple tools made of wood and iron. Oxen and horses helped plow the land. But farming was not the only type of work. Many people lived in towns and small cities where different jobs existed. Craftsmen were very important. They made tools, pottery, clothing, weapons, and household goods. A blacksmith worked with fire and metal, shaping iron into knives, farming tools, and horse equipment. Their workshops were noisy, hot, and full of smoke, but their skills were highly respected. Potters created bowls, jars, and cooking pots from clay. They shaped the clay by hand or simple wheels, then baked it in large kilns. These objects were essential in daily life. Weavers made cloth from hemp and silk. Silk was especially valuable and sometimes reserved for rich families or officials. Weaving required patience, skill, and long hours of careful work. Merchants also played an important role. They traveled between towns and cities, buying and selling goods. Some merchants specialized in food, others in textiles, and others in luxury items. Trade helped connect Beijing to other regions of China. Government officials represented another important group. They collected taxes, maintained order, organized construction projects, and enforced laws. Their work was based on loyalty, discipline, and education. Soldiers were also present in the region because northern China was often unstable. Military service was demanding, and soldiers were responsible for defending cities and protecting trade routes. Education in 300 AD was not available to everyone. It was mostly limited to boys from wealthy or official families. Learning often took place at home or in small private schools. Teachers were usually scholars who had studied classical texts. The main subjects included reading, writing, history, ethics, and philosophy. Students learned how to read Chinese characters, which required memorization and practice. Writing was done with brushes and ink on bamboo strips or silk. Students spent many hours copying texts to improve their skills. Discipline was strict, and respect for teachers was very important. Education was closely connected to government service. Many young men studied so they could pass examinations or become officials. Success in education could lead to a respected career. Girls usually did not receive formal education, but they learned important skills at home, such as managing households, weaving, cooking, and family traditions. Science in ancient Beijing was very different from modern science, but people still made important observations about the world. Medicine was based on natural philosophy. Healers used herbs, minerals, and animal products to treat illnesses. They believed in balancing the body and understanding natural forces. Astronomy was also important. Scholars studied the stars, the moon, and the movement of the planets. They used this knowledge to create calendars, which were essential for farming and festivals. Mathematics was used in trade, construction, and land measurement. Although simple compared to modern math, it was practical and effective. Engineering skills were used to build houses, city walls, roads, and irrigation systems. Builders understood how to work with wood, earth, and stone. Technologies slowly improved over time. Innovations such as better plows, improved tools, and stronger building techniques helped increase productivity. Even during this early period, ideas and philosophy played a major role in society. Confucian ideas were especially influential. These teachings focused on respect, family, education, and good behavior. Many scholars believe that a well-ordered society depended on moral leadership and strong family values. Taoist ideas were also present. Taoism emphasized living in harmony with nature, simplicity, and balance. Many people found comfort in its teachings, especially during times of political instability. Buddhism was spreading into northern China during this time. It introduced new ideas about suffering, life after death, and spiritual growth. Temples and monks began to appear in different regions. Scholars often debated these ideas. Some preferred Confucian order, others Taoist harmony, and others Buddhist spirituality. These philosophies influenced government, education, and daily life. Literature and storytelling. Writing and literature were important parts of intellectual life. Scholars wrote historical records, poems, and philosophical essays. These writings helped preserve knowledge and culture. Poetry was especially valued. Poets used simple but powerful language to describe nature, emotions, and human experiences. Storytelling was also common among ordinary people. Stories were passed down orally from generation to generation. These stories included legends, moral lessons, and historical events. Even people who could not read or write enjoyed storytelling as entertainment and education. Cultural development. Culture in Beijing during 300 AD was a mixture of tradition and change. Music played an important role in ceremonies and celebrations. Instruments such as drums, flutes, and stringed instruments were used. Artisans created beautiful objects, including decorated pottery, carved wooden items, and early forms of painting. Religious and philosophical ideas influenced cultural expression. Many artworks reflected nature, harmony, and spiritual beliefs. Despite political instability in the region, culture continued to develop slowly but steadily. Daily life of scholars and workers. A scholar's life was very different from a farmer's life. Scholars spent most of their time reading, writing, and studying. They lived in quiet environments and often had support from their families or patrons. Workers, on the other hand, had physically demanding lives. They worked long hours in fields, workshops, or markets. Yet both groups contributed to society in important ways. Without farmers, there would be no food. Without scholars, there would be no preserved knowledge or governance. Conclusion of Part 2. In this part of our journey, we explored how people in ancient Beijing worked, learned, and thought. We saw farmers, craftsmen, merchants, and officials. We learned about education, science, philosophy, and literature. Even though life in 300 AD was simple compared to today, it was rich in ideas, effort, and human creativity. In 300 AD, the area we now call Beijing was not yet the political center of China. Instead, it was part of a larger and changing world of regional kingdoms and shifting borders. China at this time was divided and unstable. Different rulers controlled different territories. Despite this division, culture, trade, and ideas still moved across regions. The Beijing area served as an important northern zone. It was close to frontier lands where farming communities met nomadic tribes from the steppes. This made it a place of interaction, exchange, and sometimes conflict. Because of this location, the region had a unique identity. It was neither fully central nor fully remote. It was a bridge between worlds. Trade was one of the most important forces in ancient Beijing's development. Local markets sold everyday goods like grain, vegetables, cloth, pottery, and tools. But trade also connected the region to distant places. Merchants traveled long distances carrying silk, salt, metal goods, and other valuable items. These journeys were slow and sometimes dangerous, but they were essential for economic life. Horse caravans were especially important in northern regions. Horses allowed faster travel across open land and helped connect Beijing with other cities and trading hubs. Some luxury goods came from faraway regions, including decorative items, fine fabrics, and rare materials. These goods were often owned by wealthy families or officials. Trade routes also carried ideas, not just products. Religious beliefs, technologies, and cultural practices spread along the same paths as goods. This exchange helped shape the development of society in Beijing and beyond. Although ancient Beijing was much smaller than today, it still had important infrastructure. City walls protected settlements from attacks and controlled access to the city. Gates regulated movement and helped authorities monitor trade and security. Roads connected villages, farms, and towns. Some roads were simple dirt paths, while others were more carefully maintained. Water systems were also important. Wells provided drinking water, and irrigation channels helped farmers grow crops more efficiently. Construction techniques relied on natural materials such as wood, earth, and stone. Builders learned how to create strong structures that could withstand weather and time. Over time, these early systems laid the foundation for future urban growth. Society in 300 AD was organized in a clear hierarchy. At the top were rulers, military leaders, and high officials. They held political power and made important decisions. Below them were scholars and administrators. They helped govern society, manage records, and enforce laws. Merchants and craftsmen formed the middle level of society. They contributed to the economy and provided essential goods and services. At the base were farmers, who made up the majority of the population. Their work supported everyone else by producing food. Although this structure was unequal, each group played a role in maintaining society. Family remained the most important social unit. Loyalty to family and respect for elders were central values across all classes. Culture in ancient Beijing was shaped by tradition, nature, and philosophy. Music was widely used in ceremonies, festivals, and daily entertainment. Instruments such as flutes, drums, and stringed instruments created melodies that reflected both joy and solemnity. Artisans created pottery, carvings, and early paintings. These works often showed natural scenes like rivers, mountains, animals, and plants. Art was not just decoration. It often carried meaning connected to harmony, balance, and spiritual beliefs. Festivals were important cultural events. During celebrations, people gathered to eat, sing, perform rituals, and enjoy performances. These moments brought communities together and strengthened social bonds. Ancestor worship remained a central tradition. Families honored their ancestors through rituals, offerings, and ceremonies. This practice strengthened family identity and respect for lineage. Confucian values influenced moral behavior and social order. Taoist ideas emphasized harmony with nature and balance in life. Buddhism continued to spread gradually into northern China. It introduced new spiritual concepts such as karma, rebirth, and enlightenment. Temples and shrines became places where people sought peace, guidance, and protection. Religious diversity allowed people to choose different paths of belief depending on their needs and experiences. Challenges of the time. Political instability often caused uncertainty. Wars between regional powers affected safety and trade. Natural challenges such as droughts, floods, and cold winters could damage crops and create food shortages. Disease and limited medical knowledge also made life difficult. Despite these challenges, people adapted. Communities worked together to survive and maintain stability. Although the Beijing of 300 AD was very different from the modern city, it played an important role in history. Its location as a northern gateway made it strategically important for future dynasties. Over time, rulers recognized its value and developed it into a major political center. The cultural traditions, philosophical ideas, and social systems of this period continued to influence later generations. Agriculture, trade networks, and craftsmanship laid the economic foundation for future growth. Even though buildings have changed and civilizations have risen and fallen, the early identity of the region remained part of its story. When we look at Beijing in 300 AD, we are not looking at a modern capital city. We are looking at a living, developing settlement shaped by people's work, beliefs, and resilience. Farmers worked the land. Scholars studied ancient texts. Merchants traveled long distances. Families built their lives around tradition and survival. It was a world of simplicity, but also a world full of human effort, ideas, and connection. And from these early beginnings, one of the greatest cities in the world would eventually rise. This concludes our journey through ancient Beijing in the year 300 AD. We hope you enjoyed exploring its daily life, work, education, philosophy, trade, and culture. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue creating historical journeys like this one. And please leave a comment below telling us which ancient city or historical period you would like us to explore next. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next journey through history.